Welcome to ILTV's Israel Weekly. Our main topics today: the IDF stands accused of doctoring a video of killed Gaza medic Razan al-Najjar, and Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu returns from his latest round of talks with European leaders. Joining me in the studio are former Deputy Chief of Staff and former National Security Advisor to two Prime Ministers, Major General Uzi Dayan, International Council member from the New Israel Fund, Jacob Ner David, former head of Israeli Air Force Intelligence and chairman of HaShomer HaChadash, Brigadier General Ram Shmueli, and political advisor Yoram Dori. Thank you very much for coming in, all of you. So moving on to our first topic. After a week of investigations into the June 1st shooting death of Gaza paramedic Razan al-Najjar, Israeli army officials concluded that Najjar was shot at the Gaza border unintentionally. But then just 2 days later, Israeli government and military social media accounts began spreading a video where Najjar first identifies herself and then admits to willfully being used as a human shield. The only problem is that the IDF now stands accused of doctoring that video. What you're about to see is the video the IDF posted, followed by a fuller soundbite released in response by the Al Mayadeen News.
أنا المسعفة رزان النجار. أنا هنا على خطوط التماس أشكل درع بشري. أنا المسعفة رزان النجار. أنا هنا على خطوط التماس أشكل درع بشري منقذ لحماية الإصابات داخل خطوط التماس.
So my first question, and I'll open it up here with you, Major General. Do you think that this video was intentionally misleading, or was it just maybe misunderstood?
Well, I don't know and I don't care. What I do care is that, in a nutshell, that's the whole story. I mean, Hamas used the people as a human shield, and behind it attack Israelis general. And we try very much to be humanitarian, and this is not humanity. I mean, we will continue to try very much not to shoot paramedics, okay? But in such a clash, happens.
But that was the original finding, was that it was an unintentional death. So why come out with this video? What was the point of that?
I think you'd have to have the IDF spokespeople here to get an accurate answer.
Of course.
I think if you want our take on it, look, the loss of life is obviously sad for everyone. And as General Dayan said, sometimes things like this unfortunately happen. But the reality is that there's a war going on. So I don't think we need to, in my personal opinion, I don't think we need to get into, releasing videos day by day, like this way or that way. We can just say it was really sad and move on.
Well, but therein lies the problem: is that it's not us here who are saying, hey, let's talk about this video. The IDF released this video, doctored, and the question and the
IDF knows how to fight, not how to deal with media.
Sure.
It was unnecessary to do it. It raised again the question: why did we shoot on her, etc. The IDF spokesperson had to do one thing, to explain, A, that the first human right is the right to remain alive, and that's what we want to do for our people. We are defending our people, and if we are in the middle of a war with a line between us and Gaza after the unilateral disengagement, it's the same way where any nation, any country deals with people who wants to come into and cross the border.
I just want to emphasize what he said.
Yeah.
Just to reframe the issue. We don't cross the border. We stand on our fence. This is the border of the State of Israel. This is not the occupied territories that are in dispute. This is the State of Israel that was approved by the United Nations back in 1948. Those people have the march to return where they want to return. They want to return to the State of Israel to replace us. So actually they want to eliminate the State of Israel. So every country stands on its fence on the border, and we protect the border. This is very natural. And when there is a war, and especially when you see civilians You see the civilian inside the Gaza Strip, they are marching to the fence in order to return to the place that they believe that they should live there. We can't afford it. It's very simple. This is the fence, this is the border, we have to protect it.
So it's not that I agree with you. I think where people are having difficulty with this is simply in the fact that, isn't that message that you just said diluted by incidents like these?
I'm not an expert about videos and press and the way you do it. I'm an expert of the basic issue of protecting the state of Israel. When you use civilian marching to the fence, you have to understand that once in a while, even though we do not shoot people on purpose, but once in a while there are some casualties. And this is a sad story, but if it will be in the future, probably it will happen again.
How do you feel this will affect our standing internationally?
Look, releasing the videos, I think, is just a mistake. I think you need to just be very clear and exactly as what was said. Any loss of life is tragic, and to stay on message with that and not start to go into with a person wearing this clothing or that clothing or exactly where they were standing. Loss of life is tragic, and as I said, you need to move on. I think in terms of the border, I think we all agree in terms of defending the border. I think the issue of what's happening at the border is a PR problem, whereas there's being marketed a message of that there are peaceful demonstrations of return. I think if they were peaceful demonstrations of return, we'd have a different topic to talk about.
Sure.
Unfortunately, they're not.
I'd like to say something about the Israeli policy. People mix here many times and make mistake on three different issues. One is the policy, let's say, national security policy or security policy. Another one is economy. And the third one is humanitarian. Now, when it comes to security, everybody understands that they protect our people. We have to continue to do that. And we are doing it pretty fine. What we see in the Gaza Strip is actually the Hamas failed to dig tunnels, failed to send the suicide bombers, etc. And the rockets, many of them or most of them are intercepted. And what is stay with, okay, let's push the people to the fence. Economy and humanitarian. First of all, humanitarian we have to do everything that we can help the people in Gaza. It's not our fault, the responsibility of the Hamas, but we don't want to see babies without milk or hospitals without electricity. Economy, there is a big mistake here, especially by the Europeans. If we'll improve the economy of Gaza, as long as the Hamas is there, this wealth, or relatively wealth, will be just turned to more terrorism against Israel. Because the Hamas is not a part of the solution, it's the problem. So when it goes to humanitarian steps, we have to do whatever we can. When it goes to security, no problem in Israel. Economy, not as long as the Hamas is using the economy of Gaza to launch more terrorism.
So how would you accomplish this? You would get rid of the Hamas ideally, but then what? You still have a lot of people, 2 million people living in Gaza. Many of them who
Why
have
do you
been,
think it's my problem?
not necessarily your problem.
I was in favor of the unilateral disengagement. I want to coordinate it with the Palestinians. I want to tell you, I was a part of the team who tried to coordinate it with the Palestinians. The Palestinians didn't want to coordinate. We want to coordinate electricity, we want to coordinate water.
The deployment of the Palestinian police,
etc. We wanted that they will build their own power plants, our desalination plants. They didn't want. I can force them. And not only the Israeli Palestinian border is closed on Gaza, also the Egyptian one.
Sure. The Rafah border, yeah.
So why is it only our problem, not an Egyptian problem?
That's a good point. Unfortunately,
I think when there's a tragedy, and you have to recognize what the tragedy is. When there's a tsunami, so you don't blame it on something else. You recognize that there was a tsunami and then you deal with the effects. Unfortunately, we don't necessarily deal with what's causing the tragedy in Gaza. And I completely agree. It's not just an Israeli problem, it's an Israeli-Egyptian problem first and foremost, and then it's a global problem.
Yes, but Jacob,
We are also the
the Egyptians.
strongest entity in the region. This is why. And the Egyptian, nobody have
nobody's been asking
any
them
thinking, because those Palestinians were under Egypt for many years.
In Gaza,
They didn't even issue them citizenship. They were without citizenship.
No,
So
I want to share.
Probably not these, but
I want to share with you. You know, during the negotiations about the withdrawal from Gaza, we spoke with Egyptians about it, and I came with an idea to make the airport in El Arish, not in El Arish, to replace Ben Gurion for export from Gaza. And I want to tell you what, at that time, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Egypt told me. He said, sorry, Yoram, the tomato with a bomb is better if it will go through Ben Gurion airport than through El Arish airport.
But they wanted Egypt to take over half of Rafah and not just cut this town into two pieces. And they refused to do it and said, well, this is from Allah. This is the 1916 line.
Yes.
This will remain the same. We don't want even one Palestinian under our
Really, we
sovereignty.
have, as Jacob said, we have to negotiate and to talk with the Egyptians, with the international
get
community,
everybody involved
together to
and
find an overall solution. It's not only an Israeli problem, because we are unable to solve it.
All right, well, with that, unfortunately, we do need to move on. So, on to our next topic. Prime Minister Netanyahu has just finished the last leg of a European tour where he spoke with world leaders about Iran, Gaza, and more. During his meetings, the Prime Minister tried to sway global powers away from the JCPOA nuclear agreement with Iran, but to no avail. Though the dangers Iran poses to the region were acknowledged, it's not enough to fix or nix the deal as Israel, the US, and few other states have been pushing for.
Donc le JCPOA n'est pas suffisant, je suis tout à fait d'accord. Mais il est mieux que ce qu'on avait avant. Et d'ailleurs, les services israéliens l'ont bien montré. Donc pour ma part, je considère que ça veut dire qu'il y a une montée de la tension réciproque. Et moi j'invite tout le monde à stabiliser la situation et à ne pas céder à cette escalade. Parce qu'elle ne mènerait qu'à une chose, le conflit.
I didn't ask France to withdraw from the JCPOA because I think the JCPOA is basically going to be dissolved by the weight of economic forces. But I think that there are two possibilities. Either Iran dismantles its nuclear activities unilaterally under this pressure, or there may be in the future negotiations for a better deal. Either one would be good if the result is that Iran doesn't have a nuclear weapon. My interest is not this or that agreement. My interest is to make sure that Iran doesn't have nuclear weapons.
Of course, as you know, along with France and Germany, the UK continues to believe that is the best route to preventing Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. And we will remain committed to it as long as Iran meets its obligations. But we do recognise that there are other issues that need to be addressed in relation to Iran. It's destabilising regional activity in countries like Syria and Yemen, and also proliferation of ballistic missiles. I'd be interested to talk about how we can work together in addressing those issues.
I'd like to start by addressing what Netanyahu said about the Iranian economy. Do you see that as the way that this kind of tensions with Iran will end? Do you see their economy imploding, or do you see this being more of an explosive situation with Iran?
I think it's sanctions work Actually, sanctions make the Iranians sign this agreement that we don't like it because it doesn't take Iran backward, just hold it. But it doesn't mean that the Iranians love it, really love it. And they're just waiting to wait 10 years now, it's 7 years and so. But what I'm saying is that sanctions work because if the sanctions are really hard, for example, embargo of oil, a boycott on everything which is money, insurance companies, banks, and so on. So it works. It's much better that all the allies, I mean the Europeans and especially actually China, Russia, and it's enough 2 or 3 of the Europeans will join it. Right now, Trump is trying to do it on his own, trying to force it on the other, let's say, partners or maybe partners in the future. So I think that the way to go economically, to go on sanctions on Iran, it's the right way. But we have to think what happens if it won't work. And also, Angela Merkel actually agreed that Iran must not be nuclear. So be conclusive about it. So if they want to give it a chance for 2 months and see what's going on, okay. But if they continue to keep this deal, Iran will be nuclear in 7 years or so.
Well, in that same respect, I mean, Iran just recently announced publicly that they're expanding the number of centrifuges that will be capable of.
So maybe
enriching
Iran
uranium.
will do the work for us, and they will understand. But it's about time that the European leaders will understand that they are playing with fire.
So, Brigadier General, do you think that ultimately, if it comes down to it, will these European countries join Israel and the United States in sanctions, or even maybe a military engagement with Iran if it comes to that end?
I would like to suggest that maybe the situation is even better for us. The situation that they are not together, the American on one hand, the sanctions, and the European and the Russians and the Chinese are trying to keep on the agreement. Maybe it's better for us. I believe that Benjamin Netanyahu went to Europe in order to see what are the advantages that we have in the new situation, and of course to try to convince about what we believe. And there is a linkage, of course, the nuclear deal and the involvement of Iran in the region. So maybe this situation that Israel have its point, American choose the sanctions, the European and the other partners are keeping with the agreement, maybe something good is going to happen. Good for me is that our situation will be better to confront nuclear capability from Iran. If they told us that they already enriched more uranium in the last months because of the American withdrawal, so maybe it can highlight for us their capability to do it maybe secretly. Maybe they're doing it secretly. And if they're not doing it secretly, like General Dayan said, at the time that they will choose, either now or after 7 years, they're going to do it. So this is not good. Maybe the new situation is better for us.
All right, well, yeah.
No, I was just saying that I think Bibi started to do this, and you saw some success from this, but I think he should drop the opposition to the nuclear deal, at least publicly, and instead focus perhaps other sanctions on the other issues which he got broad agreement on, and take the moral high ground and say Iran has no place in Syria, Iran has no place in Lebanon, and so on, and focus on that and get people to really focus on that. To beat people over the head, which unfortunately he's continued to do on the nuclear deal, I think is a mistake.
It's like the analogy of beating a dead horse in this case.
I think is a mistake. You know, he found an ally in Trump. Leave them alone.
I think the major mistake is that Israel dealt with the nuclear capacity of Iran and not with the long-range missiles. You know, I don't have experience on military issues like my 2 colleagues, but in my knowledge and from my experience, long-range missiles, which can wear hats, nuclear hats, are much more threat to Israel than the nuclear capacity, which is very difficult to avoid because, you know, the knowledge is in the minds of the Iranian scientists. But long-range missiles, you can put a real good embargo and to avoid it from the Iranian. And I think I was part of a conversation with President Obama at that time.
But politically,
And,
but it's not, it's
and
not
President
the same with
Peres-
airplanes and
President Peres, even in 2001, I told Jacob before we start this program, that in 2001, the first issue in any negotiations with foreign ministers or with prime ministers all over the world in 2001 was nuclear Iran. And-
Actually, I was in Washington those days when they changed the administration. It was 17 January. And I met with these guys, Condi Rice, Rich Armitage, Paul Wolfowitz, etc. And I said to them two important things from my point of view. And one was, Iran is going nuclear. And they asked me, how much time do you think it will take them? I say, at least a decade, it takes time. And then they said, you know, it's maybe too early to act. I said, okay, continue to kick the
That's why
can
they want-
out
Kick the
the
bucket down the
street,
road.
and one day you will wake up and you will say it's too late, not it's too early.
And I want to tell you why I'm in
ballistic
favor
missile-
of sanctions.
Final word,
Because
yeah.
I'm not sure that there is really a military option.
Right.
Even for the Americans. You know, they tried a military option in Afghanistan.
You are
It
wrong
took them
about
10
it.
years and nothing happened. They tried in Iraq and
You're
nothing
wrong. You are
happened.
wrong. It's something
Okay,
different.
well, okay, I'm wrong. I know that I'm wrong.
I just want to add one information. Ballistic missile is not the only way to deliver a nuclear weapon. So if you emphasize only ballistic missiles, it's not enough.
Yeah.
All right. Well, unfortunately,
Airplanes, submarines,
well,
cruise missiles.
unfortunately, we're going to have to end it on that note. So we've left a lot of people with a lot to think about, but that's our time for today for ILTV's Israel Weekly. So thank you again to our guests, Brigadier General Ram Shmueli, Major General Uzi Dayan, Jacob Ner David, and Yoram Dori. And thanks to all of you for tuning in. Retired Sergeant Yoram Dori. Thank you very much. Remember to follow us on Facebook at Israel English News and, of course, on Twitter at ILTV News. I'm Aaron Porras, and we'll see you next week.